Amanda Anisimova just said something about a girl she has never faced across a net. 2 years ago, almost nobody outside the Philippines could have told you her name. Today, a top 10 player in the world is calling her a very great player with a lot of fans. Something happened in between those two facts, and it is not small. Anisimova does not hand out compliments for free. She has beaten Grand Slam champions. She has walked into 2 major finals. She does not need to be kind about an opponent she has never even rallied against in practice. So why is she doing it now, right before they finally share a court? Think about where Alex Eala actually comes from. The Philippines has never produced a top tennis player before, not one. No academy pipeline, no long list of former pros paving the way, no built-in road to the WTA Tour. And yet, here she is, about to walk onto a court in Cincinnati against a woman ranked 10th on the planet, and that woman is the one talking her up before a single ball gets struck. Something does not add up. Either Anisimova knows something the rest of us have not caught on to yet, or Alex Eala has quietly become the kind of player who earns respect before she even proves it on the scoreboard. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what changed and why a 2-time Grand Slam finalist is choosing her words so carefully about a 21-year-old from Manila she has never even practiced against. So who is she, really? She was born in a country of over 100 million people that has never once produced a top-level professional tennis player. Basketball owns that country's heart. Tennis courts are rare there, and real academies are rarer still. She picked up a racket at 4 years old, and by her teenage years it was obvious she had something the local system could not grow on its own. So her family made a decision that changed everything. They sent her across the world, to Rafa Nadal's academy in Mallorca, Spain. Her home? Gone. Her language? Gone. Her entire support system? Gone. All traded away to chase a sport her own country had barely any infrastructure for, and the results came fast. 2 junior Grand Slam doubles titles by 2021. Then in 2022, she became the first Filipino ever to win a junior Grand Slam singles title at the US Open. That is a kid breaking barriers before she even turned 18. But junior tennis and professional tennis live in 2 completely different worlds, and for a while it looked like Eala might get stuck between them. Years of grinding through lower-tier events and brutal qualifying rounds nobody puts on television. Her ranking sat outside the top 150 for a long, painful stretch. She carried the label of Rafa Nadal's prodigy everywhere she went, and a label like that always comes with a price tag. Expectations climb faster than results ever can. Now, fast forward, and the numbers tell a completely different story. Career high ranking of world number 20. A record of 9 wins and 4 losses against top 10 players. Say that number again in your head. 9. Swiatek, Gauff, Pegula, Rybakina, Paulini, and Svitolina twice. Those are not upsets you back into by accident. Those require real, repeatable, elite-level tennis, match after match. And just weeks ago, she won her very first WTA Tour title at the Mubadala DC Open in Washington, cutting through 3 seeded players back-to-back-to-back. From there, straight into a 4th-round run at Wimbledon, then a 4th round in Toronto. This is not one hot week that got lucky. This is a pattern. So when Amanda Anisimova, a woman who has stood in 2 Grand Slam finals herself, speaks carefully about Alex Eala before they have ever shared a court, you start to understand why. She is not being polite to a stranger. She is acknowledging someone who has already earned her way into rooms most people never expected her to enter. But respect from a rival, that is one thing. The real story is what it actually took to get here. Rewind now to a night in 2024 that almost nobody outside tennis circles remembers because at the time it looked like nothing at all. Just another qualifying match at the US Open. Eala walked onto that court 1 win away from her first ever Grand Slam main draw. Across the net stood a Romanian named Elena-Gabriela Ruse, ranked 122. Eala sat at 153. On paper, this should have gone either way. It did not go her way. 3 sets, and she lost. The door slammed shut for another year. And that loss was not some isolated bad night. It landed right in the middle of a stretch where her ranking had frozen outside the top 150 for months. She was losing exactly the kind of matches that decide whether a promising junior ever becomes a real professional. Small margins, third set collapses, The matches nobody outside her own team was even watching, but the ones that quietly decide a career. What do you do when you carry the label of Rafa Nadal's protege, when everyone expects you to already be dominating, and instead you are stuck slogging through qualifying rounds that never make television? That kind of pressure does something to a young athlete. Every article mentioned the academy in Mallorca. Every interview circled back to Nadal, and the scoreboard just kept disagreeing. There was a second weight pressing down too. Eala was not only fighting other players, she was fighting time itself. Every year, a young player spends stuck outside the top 100. Others her age are climbing right past her, grabbing the ranking spots and the wild cards and the spotlight that could have belonged to her. So here is the question that hung over this entire stretch. If a player with her talent still could not turn potential into results after years of trying, what was actually missing? Was it physical? Was it mental? Or was the pressure of expectation itself becoming the obstacle instead of the fuel? Nobody watching her lose that qualifying match in 2024 could have told you the answer. And if you had told anyone in that stadium that within 2 years this same young woman would be sitting at world number 20 with 9 wins over top 10 players, they would have laughed you out of the building. Here is the assumption you have probably been making this whole time without realizing it. You have been picturing this as a story where talent got buried under pressure, where the academy and the Nadal comparisons somehow held her back. Flip that over. Every single one of those grinding, forgettable, qualifying matches was never a detour from her path. It was the path itself. Nobody becomes a killer against top 10 players by skipping the trenches. You become that player by living in them. Think of it like a boxer. The fighters who actually terrify champions are rarely the ones who came up easy. The dangerous ones spent years absorbing punches in small gyms. Nobody was filming, learning exactly how much pain they could take and still keep walking forward. That is what 3 straight years of brutal qualifying rounds actually builds. Not a broken player. A player who has already lost in every painful way a match can be lost and kept coming back anyway. Look again at who she has beaten since climbing out of that stretch. Swiatek, Gauff, Pegula, Rybakina. These are not players who crumble under pressure. These are the toughest competitors on the planet, and she has beaten every one of them, 9 times combined. You do not stumble into a record like that. You earn it. Because somewhere in those quiet, unwatched years, she built a nervous system that simply refuses to panic anymore. So when Anisimova calls her a very great player with a lot of fans, she is showing respect to someone who has already been tested in ways most players never are, and passed every time it mattered. I genuinely want to know what you think here. Does a hard grind through failure actually make an athlete more dangerous down the line? Or does it just get lucky and turn into a nice story once the wins start piling up? Drop your take in the comments, because this exact question decides how you watch every underdog story that comes after this one. And here's the piece almost nobody covering this story has caught. That loss to Ruse in 2024, the one that looked like a devastating setback, Eala already faced her again in Cincinnati just days ago. This time she did not just win, she dismantled her. 6-1, 3-0 before Ruse had to retire, unable to continue. The same player who beat her at the moment that mattered most 2 years ago could not even finish a match against her this time. That is not coincidence. That is exactly what 2 years of grinding, losing, adjusting, and grinding again actually produces. But if that grind really did build something this dangerous, the proof should be everywhere, not tucked into one revenge win. And it is. Start in Washington. To win that title, she had to cut through 3 seeded players in a row with 0 room to coast. Not a runner-up finish, a trophy in her hands. Then straight into a 4th round at Wimbledon, on grass, a surface that punishes any inconsistency. Then a 4th round in Toronto, where she avenged an earlier season loss to Alicia Parks the very next time they met. 9 wins against top 10 players. Swiatek, Gauff, Pegula, Rybakina, Paolini, Svitolina twice. Lay that list out for a second. These are 5 completely different styles of world-class tennis, and she has found an answer for every single one. A player who only wins because of one weapon cannot produce a spread like that. Only a truly complete player can. And then Cincinnati, happening right now, bringing everything full circle. She walked into her debut there and drew Ruse, the very player who ended her Grand Slam dream in 2024. This time she dismantled her, 6-1, 3-0 before Ruse retired, unable to continue. That win set up exactly the match this whole video has been building toward, the first ever meeting between Eala and Amanda Anisimova, a world number 10 with 2 Grand Slam finals behind her. And this is where Anisimova's words stop sounding like polite small talk and start sounding like something else. A player who gains nothing from flattering an opponent chose to publicly acknowledge Eala's fan base and her season before a single point had even been played. Here is something almost nobody has caught. This is not just about talent anymore. Tournament directors have started calling the crowds Eala draws unprecedented, stadiums selling out specifically because her name is on the schedule, flags from her home country filling stands that used to hold a handful of supporters. Anisimova is not walking into a dangerous floater buried in a draw. She is walking into a player who has become must-watch television for reasons that have nothing to do with rankings and everything to do with how she makes an entire stadium feel. So, here is your answer. Why did a top 10 player choose her words so carefully about an opponent she had never even faced? Because Anisimova was not looking at some rising talent hoping to eventually make a name for herself. She was looking at someone who already had one. 9 wins over top 10 players. A first career title won by beating 3 seeded opponents in a row. A revenge win so complete the opponent could not even finish the match. That is not a prospect anymore. That is a threat. And Anisimova knew it before she ever stepped on the court. Think about where this leaves Alex Eala right now. World number 20, climbing fast, about to walk into the biggest test of her season. If she wins this one, it becomes the loudest possible signal that the version of her who used to lose the close ones is completely gone, replaced by someone who beats the best players in the world as a habit now, not an exception. And this match is landing right as the road to the US Open opens up, the exact Grand Slam where she already made history once before as a junior champion. If she can take down a top 10 player on American soil right now, in front of crowds, tournament directors are already calling unprecedented. What happens when she walks into Flushing Meadows carrying that same momentum? We do not know yet. Nobody does, not even Anisimova, no matter how carefully she chose her words before this match. That is exactly why this one is worth watching so closely, because we might be looking at the precise moment a career shifts from promising to unavoidable. If you want to see how this actually plays out, and whether Eala's 9-win streak against the top 10 finally becomes 10, stick around, because this story is nowhere close to finished, and I am going to be right here covering every single step of it as it happens.